Welcome to TV Picks. I am Pix, and we are talking Riverdale, Chapter 12, Anatomy of a Murder. Well, this week's show was a doozy. While I could spend probably an hour going over every little detail, I'm going to do the opposite and cover the three main points of this episode. Bing, bang, boom. So if you have not caught up to Riverdale, you got about 10 seconds before we go into heavy spoilers. Ready? Okay. First, we continue from last week's episode where Jughead's dad confesses to everything, and I mean everything, which automatically tells us that since he's lying about some stuff, he's probably not the killer, but our biggest and last red herring. And lying about part of his confession actually leads us to the second point, and frankly grossest part. Betty and Alice, Cooper, you know I had to get one in, catches Betty's dad breaking into the house trying to destroy the evidence he stole from the sheriff, which Jughead's dad confessed to. Why, you may ask? Okay, get this. The long-standing blood feud between the Coopers and the Blossoms is because Betty's great-grandfather, who was murdered because he changed his name to Cooper from Blossom. Now, I'm going to let that sink in for a moment because you might be saying, so what? But least we forget that Polly, Betty's sister, is pregnant with Jason Blossom's kid, who we know now is related to them by blood. Ew. If that isn't creepy enough for you, the Coopers go to fetch Polly and of course are confronted by the Blossoms who knew and are completely okay with it. I mean, Mr. Blossom says it was like they were third cousins, not brother and sister. And Mrs. Blossom was like, there could be nothing more purely Blossom than those two babies. Which of course are referring to Polly's twins. Ugh. And of course this leads into the last big reveal of the episode. Who killed Jason Blossom? Which by now is not nearly as shocking as it should be once it's revealed. But here, let me set up the scene. Archie and the gang have been pursuing the truth about Jughead's dad this whole episode, which brings us to Jason's jacket that Jughead's dad had, and it turns out that he has a flash drive in the pocket that recorded the footage of Jason Blossom's murder. He was tied up in the White Worm's basement, you know, the serpent bar, which explains how Jughead's dad is involved, but is in fact Jason's own father, shown on the recording shooting his son in the head. Why? Well, it isn't actually explained, but it is implied, and the clues are laid out for us that Jason either was told or found out what the true Blossom business was, and it wasn't maple syrup, but drugs. I don't know what kind of drugs. At the end, you see that it could be heroin for all I know. Again, it's laid out for us, but not explained. But that is why Jason was running away, and that is why Jason's dad killed him. And we end our episode finding out the reason Jughead's dad has confessed. It is because Mr. Blossom threatened to kill Jughead if he didn't. But in the end, as the cops show up to arrest him, Mr. Blossom has chosen to end his own life instead of facing the consequences of his actions. Wow, this is one hell of an episode to one hell of a season. But it isn't over, folks. We have one more episode. So join me next week for the season finale, Chapter 13, The Sweet Hereafter. Thanks for watching. Please hit that like button and subscribe. Hit me up on Twitter, and I'll see you next week, folks. Pix signing out.